session titled Transforming Leadership, Shaping the Future of Corporate Culture. For this session, we have our keynote speaker, Mette Johansson, who is an award-winning author, speaker, and consultant with 15 years of experience in leadership roles at multinational corporations. She's the founder of MetaMind, a consultancy specializing in human-centric leadership skills. Joining her is Rajita Saxena, a global leader with 19 years of experience at Google, where she now leads their global learning and development team. Her passion for unlocking human potential makes her an ideal partner for today's discussion. Let's give a warm welcome to Mette and Rajita.
Clearly, I'm very uncomfortable with this. So, Mette and I decided that we are just going to have a conversation with each other, and we'd love for you to be the audience for this. Um, so, Mette, can I start asking you the first question?
Please do so.
Yeah. So, tell me a little bit more about how narratives came about, your book, and do you want to show the audience your book?
Just losing.
Yeah. I know. Is that
It's
okay?
falling off. Is there anybody who knows how this?
Just put it behind your ear. Just behind it. Yeah. This part behind the ear.
There.
Right.
Is it okay like this? Testing, testing. Is it okay like this? Yeah, of course. There you go. Is this okay? It was
that
going
okay?
to fall
Yeah?
down. No, it's
Okay.
okay. Good.
Yeah, cool.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Sure.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Then I can answer your question. How
Yes.
did the book Narratives come about? Now, I work as a faculty for some leading universities' executive education programs. I run leadership development programs for large corporations. And in one of the workshops that I did, we stayed behind. I spoke to the head of HR for that multinational organization, and we came to talk about the perception of leadership and some of the silly things we say about women in leadership position. And I can see that there are some women in the audience here today as well. It's things such as, oh, women are so emotional, they cannot be leaders. Or, oh, she's not interested in a career. We made a long list of different things that we thought were absolutely nonsensical that we say about women in corporate life. So that's how it all came about. It was in a conversation after a workshop with an HR leader who was frustrated about what we say about women at the workplace.
Okay.
What about your book?
So this book, it's called Rewrite the Rules. It's going to be in India, available in India on December 15th. It's written by Ritu, who's my co-author, and myself, Rajita. This came about because, as women in the corporate ourselves, and Ritu's work takes her to work with many, many women leaders, so does mine, while I was at Google. And we realized that a lot of times women are either asked to be like men, so that was one, in their leadership behaviors. Two, there are a lot of books written for women's leadership, but they have a very Western lens. And three, a lot of books assume that women are the victim in the situation. And we wanted to get away from that mindset, and we said, okay, we want women whose narratives are very Asian to be actually told, whose narratives should be told more often. We also wanted women to understand that they can control the controllables, they can do things that they can, that are in their control to further their careers. And three, the Asian story is never told. There is a lot of cultural nuances in Asia that are never told, that are never like the Western cultural nuances, and that needs to be factored in when you think of women in the leadership space. And that was the reason that we brought this book into existence. And we realized that when we think of women leaders in Asia, we only think of Indra Nui usually. And even her context is very Western, it's not an Indian context. And we wanted to really give voice to a lot of women leaders in Asia who are successful, who are working within the Asian context, and are leading and are CEOs in many cases of companies in Asia. And we wanted their stories to be told. And that's how Rewrite the Rules came about.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, before any men in the audience go away because they think it's going to be all about women, it's not. What you just said about there's not enough representation of women in the workforce, in
Right.
leadership positions.
Yeah.
One of the things that also motivated me to write this book is that women, everybody who is not a certain profile will not have as many role models to look up to as in leadership. Now, luckily, there's a lot of Indian leaders who are out there leading multinational companies. That is one thing that's really, I'm very happy to see that. What I often do point out is I did an MBA. It's been quite a few years ago. It's one of the leading MBA schools in Europe. And I went back to look at who are the authors of the books that are taught in MBA programs around the world. Can you guess what the profiles are? They are male. They are typically able-bodied, acting straight. They are American. They are white. We're talking about a demography of about 100 million people who are writing the rules that we are running our businesses after. They are the ones who are deciding this is the gold standard of running a business. So of course, nobody in the audience here fits that demographic profile. And that's why we need different voices that can also transform leadership in future.
Absolutely. And I think, talking of transformative leadership, I feel that there is a space in the corporate world as well where corporates need to start thinking differently about leadership, right? They have the same measures for leadership, which is like the chest thumping, with your arms on your waist kind of loud leadership that is always talked about. And I also think leadership is always thought of in the CEO, the C levels. And I feel that for women, those rules don't apply. You could be an introvert and still be a very strong leader. And if you read the book, you'll see that there are so many women we've spoken to who have said, networking is not in my blood, what can I do? And I realized that I don't need to network unnecessarily. I can find my tribe, and so they've shared their success stories of networking really well and growing in a corporate without following the traditional rules. They've broken those rules, they've rewritten rules. And we are not asking for a revolution. We are just saying, do what works for you. And I think, when we were talking backstage, you were talking of authentic leadership. It's all about how do you use your authenticity as a leader to actually succeed in life rather than trying to be someone else. So absolutely, I fully believe that transformation will come when we do something differently, not by doing the same thing multiple times. So, yeah.
Authentic leadership is what I speak about as a keynote speaker, and my next book is also going to be about authentic leadership. And talking about transformative leadership, what do we need to transform leadership? I am so convinced that we need more authentic leadership. We need more leaders who lead as themselves, regardless of gender. This is not a gender issue.
Absolutely.
First of all, it makes you more powerful when you build on what is already you. When you build on your strength, you become a much better leader than if you try to role model somebody, if you try to copy somebody that you're not. So build on your own authentic strength. And one of the things with authenticity that's very often misunderstood, what makes you authentic? Think about it, what makes you authentic?
Yeah.
Is it being an introvert or an extrovert, or what is it that makes you authentic? The hypothesis that I have worked after for the past 10 years is that it's your own personal core values.
Yeah.
The values that you hold dear. And for authentic leadership, that means that you lead with your values. That is going to define you as a leader. And that means that you can lead regardless of any situation. Whether we have another pandemic, whether we have more supply chain interruptions, whatever will happen, I certainly hope we won't, for sure. You will have your own rule book to follow, your values. If you follow your values, you will take the right decision. So that is what I see is essential for leadership regardless of gender, now that we have two authors who are spoken about gender in their books, in their latest books. So what's your take on transformative leadership?
Before I go to
Yeah.
that, I definitely want to just say that there is this line I think I read somewhere, a very famous line that says, be yourself because everybody else is taken, right? And I think to me that really applies to leadership as well. It's not just a human thing. It applies to leadership. Some of the best leaders I've admired in my career have been people who've just been themselves and who've also not asked me to be someone else. And I mean, I've also had leaders who've asked me to be like them or like somebody else. But I think the ones that I've really admired and respected is, when they've let me be who I am, or they've been themselves. And I think that really changed the way I looked at my career and what I expected from my teams as well. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for the authentic piece. On transformative leadership, I think one, I also believe, I did say that, corporates need to look at leadership differently. I also think with the book, I did mention that we should not be having a victim mentality. What we are trying to ask women to do is also think of leadership transformation within themselves, right? So don't leave it to somebody else to come and tell you what training to do. Learning is such a core part of what you want to do, how to stay current. You said pandemic, which I hope doesn't happen again, but AI, right? Like AI can take all our jobs away. And then what will we do then? Like if artificial intelligence is already taking up a lot of jobs, then what remains is the skills that you pick up in a role that can be the human skills that you pick up. You need to invest. And I feel that learning and spending time on upgrading your knowledge all the time definitely is a component of transformative leadership. That to me is number one key. How do you learn? And of course, learning comes with also unlearning, right? Like, so you unlearn what doesn't work for you, you learn what works for you, and then how do you take your career forward, figuring out the path that works for you. So for me, that is a key part of individual transformation that you bring in your leadership skills, or even in your career growth. Absolutely.
And you right now have a power duo between somebody who's been responsible for leadership development programs at one of the world's leading companies and somebody who's delivered a lot of these programs for multinational clients around the world. And of course, we've had a lot of conversations about leadership with all these people. And one thing that I often hear is the most important leadership skill today, it is that agility. It is that being ready for whatever you're being faced with. When we wake up in the morning and the world has changed again, what do we do? That flexibility to adjust to any situation is one of the most important skills to have today. And that means also that you need to have a vision that goes beyond a strategy for a quarter. You need to have a vision of a world that is somehow a better place. As a leader, you can only lead today, you can only transform organizations if you have those visionary skills. I've all the way said that leaders who are really great leaders, they need to have 3 different areas of competencies.
Absolutely.
One of them is to have that far-reaching view, the visionary part. One of it is also to lead people, be a great people leader. And the third part is being good at getting stuff done. If you cannot get stuff done, you're not leadership material. Well, unfortunately, for many leaders, that's not the case. They get away with it anyway. But hopefully, those 3 things together, and you have a perfect leader. And that visionary, that being able to see beyond whatever may come tomorrow, we're still going to change the world in some way. That is what's going to transform, also when tomorrow looks very different from what it does today.
Absolutely. I want to come back to the book a little bit again, Mette, and ask you a question. So in these narratives, is there a story that resonates with you and something that you said, you thought that, oh my God, this story is just mine. I have a lot of my stories in the book, so I can talk about that as well, but I'd love to hear one of the stories that resonated with you.
In fact, we both have interviewed dozens of people for the book. We have also done lots of research for it and based it on own experiences. So there's a lot of similarities
I know,
between
and
the two
synergy,
books,
which
right?
is why we're here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and why we could chat all afternoon today,
Totally, yes.
preparing for this conversation. Now, I start the book with the narrative of women are too emotional, so they cannot be leaders. And it is, I particularly, well, like is not really the right word for it. I particularly dislike this because we often say that women are too emotional. What is it that we're complaining about? Maybe that she's too enthusiastic, maybe that she's frustrated. So what? I mean, in fact, if you're frustrated, it's because you want to change something, it's not working, and you're going to try again. So you're going to put in extra effort to make it work, usually. And when you're enthusiastic about a thing, that's again energy that you're going to put in to work. If you're proud, that's also okay, isn't it? Now, the interesting thing is, one of the women that I interviewed for the book, she is a chief human resource officer in India, and she said, "Phew, women too emotional? You should see the boys in the boardroom. When they don't get their way, they will slam their fist on the tables, they will jump up, they will shout.
Throw a
Women too
tantrum.
emotional?" And it's not just the women's issue here. It is that often we say things that we repeat. Other people have said it, it sounds cool, and we repeat it over and over again. And we shouldn't. Whenever we hear things, we should take a step back and think slow, as Daniel Kahneman says in his book,
Yes.
Think Fast, Think Slow.
Right.
It is about critically thinking about what is it that we're saying about other people in the workplace? What are also the measures of leadership we have? Are they the right ones? Are we doing the right things? So thinking more critically about everything we say and do in the workplace. That is one of my favorite stories from the book. And it's, of course, a red thread that we sometimes don't think enough about what we say. It's nonsensical. Who said here, who's asked a question to some of their colleagues or friends, do you prefer having a female or a male boss?
Oh, I have, for certain.
I have asked that question too. Why? I see some hands in the audience. Why are we asking that question? And what is it that we're implying when we're asking that question? We should just not ask these questions anymore. There are good male bosses, there are bad male bosses, there are good female bosses, there are bad female bosses. It has nothing to do with gender. And that is what we need to get away from. What about your?
For me, when I started writing the book, I realized that initially, I didn't never thought of myself as a woman. I was thinking, oh, like you said, don't think of gender. I would think of myself as a person in the workforce. And when we started interviewing women, because we also have an accompanying podcast, interviewing women for this book, I realized that, oh my God, everything that they're telling us has happened to me. And I can't tell you the number of times I went back to think of, oh my God, this incident, I looked at it as my fault. But I didn't realize that the system was not working for me because I was a woman. And it really opened my eyes up. And there are many stories in that I really resonate with. It sounds like this happened to me as well, all of that. One story that really resonates with me is around the story of balance, right? What does balance mean for women? Especially in the Asian context, balance is very, very different because, we are in a collectivist society. You need to think of women who take care of their parents, their in-laws, their children. They work and then they come back. They also have to take care of the home. And that balance doesn't really leave time for a woman for herself, right? And I used to be like that in the past till such a time that my health took toll. And I started feeling like ill. I'm not able to do really well at work. I'm sleeping half the time when I'm coming in the cab going back home. It just became crazy. And I realized that if I don't focus on myself, I can't be anything to anybody in the workplace or at home. And I think a lot of women don't tend to think of that balance for themselves. And the second part was, I like to think of myself as a jack of all trades. There needs to be a Jane of all trades, but I'm a Jane of all trades, so I studied to be a doctor. I also am a classical musician. I used to perform on the radio, and I had given all of that up, and I was like, okay, those things made me who I was, and I'm not really doing what I wanted. And I really took a close look at where my time was being spent, and is it necessary to give all the time to the corporate? Where, why am I not taking time for myself and building energy for myself? And I think that inquiry is so important that you really need to ask yourself, are you doing everything for yourself or not? Because if, I don't like this analogy, but it always fits, which is putting your own oxygen mask on in a flight before, you help others. And I felt that that really fit my case on balance, that if I didn't take care of myself, I couldn't be a mother, I could not be a daughter, I could not be a corporate employee. Or I could, and right now I work for myself, I can't do my work for myself, right? And to me, those stories on balance really resonated. Yeah.
And the key word, taking care, I will use it as a segue to go back to how do we have transformative leadership at companies? Because yes, it's taking care of ourselves and it's taking care of other people as well. That is one of the things that women have traditionally also been put into that box of, oh, they are the caring, nurturing group of people, right? Now, here I believe that everybody needs to be that caring and nurturing leader. We know that younger generations are often said to choose a purpose, a mission, rather than a career. And we also need to make sure that we're taking care of people. Whether it's younger generation, older generations, that's one of the things that's essential in leadership as well. If you want to transform a company, if you want to be successful as a leader, it is about making sure that you also are this caring personality. And again, this is where authenticity comes back in. If you are keen on growing, nurturing, caring for other people, do it, regardless of gender. Don't let it be, okay, women are like this and men are like that, and don't label it this caring leadership as female leadership. No, it's simply compassionate leadership versus competitive leadership. We need to make sure that if we want to have good leadership today, it is about also taking care of people, and regardless of gender, take care of your people. There are great leaders out there who are leading the way.
Yeah.
Also, again, an Indian leading Microsoft. He has very much transformed the company into focusing much more on people and purpose, going away from only products and profits towards people and purpose. It can be done by any gender, and it must be done by any gender.
Yeah, I think focusing on your talent, whether it is building talent through learning or building talent through taking care of your people, is transformative at its core, right? So I kind of feel that you really hit the nail on the head on taking care of people is so important, because you can't have a company without the people. So, yeah. What else? What's the one thing that you'd like to tell us about the book? Like, what's the hook line on the book?
About the book, it is that it is not just women who are, no, the other way around. It's not just men who are telling the stories that hold women back at work. It's all genders. Also women in the room, also women in this audience. It is making sure that we don't repeat some of those stories that don't have much root in the truth. The stories that, for instance, women cannot work together, don't share that story. It's not going to help anybody. And again, this is something I hear women say on stage. This year, International Women's Day, I was attending a large presentation, a woman who said she had hired a team of C-suite all women because she could. And in no time, they were in each other's hair.
Oh, goodness.
Her conclusion was women cannot work together. It's like, no, it is people who have difficulties working together. It's difficult to work with people. We need to go so much out of our way. And she had hired a team of high-performing individualists. That's not the best recipe for a high-performing team. You've worked a lot with high-performing teams at Google's. I have taught a lot of companies how to run a high-performing team. it's not about putting the best individuals together, the highest performing individualist. It's about having people who can work together. So stop saying those nonsensical things, and it's not just one gender who says it. We all say things that don't really help promote gender equality.
Yeah, it's not the who on the team, it's how they work together that really matters. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's one thing that you want people to remember from your book?
So we have written Rewrite the Rules to say that it is not a book. It's actually a call to action. We're asking every woman to rewrite the rules that don't work for them, to use the rules that work for them and find success through that. And so we're asking women to actually own their careers. So our tagline is own it, right? So that's what we're saying. Please own the book, not own the book, own your careers, own your journey.
Own the book too.
Own the book as well, yes, please purchase it.
Own the book
too. Thank you. Yeah, but it's more about, you own your career, so own it. Like be in the driving seat of your career rather than being driven around by archaic rules that don't work. I just want to talk about one archaic rule because I never liked to post on LinkedIn, and I realized that in today's world, I'm not going to conferences, especially with the pandemic. We're not doing all of those things. How am I going to reach out to my audience? And the only way was LinkedIn. And I wrote about it, and I said, okay, if that's the way to reach, you have to reach out. And it really works for introverts because then you don't have to be on stage talking to people. You can just update your LinkedIn profile. It'll speak for you. But yes, so think of things that are very simple. The book will give you ideas as well. And own your careers, so own it.
Absolutely. Own your career. Make sure you take self-development into your own hands.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Mette and Rajita, for that discussion, for your work, and for bringing out nuances about leadership that we so often miss. Thank you. Thank you for the lessons and strategies that we've explored here, and I'm sure we'll be taking all of that with us to foster innovation, drive meaningful growth in our organizations, and together shape a better and solid future. I would now like to invite Mr. Patel from the National Book Trust to present them with a token of our appreciation.
Yeah, and I'd also like to thank both Penguin and NBT for inviting us, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. Thank you, Rajita and Mette once again. And thank you all for attending the session this evening. Hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening ahead. Thank you.